In the quiet early morning, the town lay still. The factory in the distance hummed with life, a constant presence. Joe stood outside his small house, putting on his work boots, ready to face another day. Joe had never known what he wanted to do after high school. Some kids had dreams of college, adventure, or traveling the world. But for Joe, life was simpler. His father had worked at the local factory for 30 years, and Joe knew he'd end up there too. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. As he walked down the street passing houses, the factory loomed larger in the background. At 18, with a diploma in hand and no other options in sight, Joe began his journey into factory life. His first day was on the afternoon shift, 3 p.m. to midnight, under the dim, artificial lights with no window. The rhythmic hum of machines never seemed to stop. The floor was a maze of conveyor belts, heavy machinery, and workers who seemed as much a part of the factory as the equipment itself. There was no real choice about it. If you were new, you worked afternoons.
Keep up, kid, we ain't got time for slow.
Joe, sweating and struggling, tried to lift heavy parts and adjust to the relentless pace. The factory was a world of its own, and Joe was just beginning to understand it. Joe had hoped to ease into the job, but the reality hit him quickly. The factory was no place for easing into anything. By the end of that first shift, his body ached. Muscles he didn't even know he had burned from lifting parts and standing for hours. And the noise, the constant clanging and hissing was so loud that after the shift, the silence of the outside world felt unsettling. But still, there was something comforting about the routine. You punched in, you did your job, you punched out. Days blurred into weeks, and weeks into months. Joe found himself getting more comfortable, working faster, and even laughing with older workers on break. He was learning the rhythm of factory life. Joe fell into the rhythm. The older guys taught him tricks to make the job easier, how to handle the machines without burning out. Slowly, he got better.
Hey Joe, not bad for a rookie.
There was camaraderie on the floor. The men didn't talk much, but when they did, it was about the job, plans for the weekend, simple things. No one asked about dreams or ambitions. It was understood the factory was life for most of them. Sometimes Joe wondered how long he'd be there. He'd heard stories of men who spent decades in the factory, trading their youth for a paycheck and the hope of retirement. At night, he thought about what kind of life that was. But by morning, when the sun was rising and he was heading home while others were just starting their day, those thoughts faded. Just gotta get seniority, Joe would tell himself. That was the key. Seniority meant a shot at the day shift, maybe weekends off. It was what everyone worked for. The light at the end of the tunnel. But it was also far off for him. Joe stands a little taller. Joe smiles, but it's a thin, thoughtful smile. He watches Earl walk away. Joe smiled, but it was thin. He wasn't sure whether that promise was a reward or a sentence, but for now, he had a job to do, and the machines were already calling. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more stories at Griot World Info.